All in.
Say all in.
All in. All in.
All in.
All in.
I have got a very important announcement. Mark your calendars. December 14th, 12 p.m. Pacific, I will be playing on the Lodge live stream. 510, most likely 510-25. We're going to get in there, battle it up. 3 5K bullets I'll be firing. That being said, let's get straight into the video. Welcome back, folks. Today we are going to cover how to make your opponent's life as miserable as possible by piling as many chips as is humanely possible into the middle of the table. We're going to cover a single hand I played from a 5-10 session yesterday, and then a very swingy 2-5 session that I played today. Let's get straight into it. Picking up pocket eights here at a 5-10 game, I raise things up to $25 and we get the cutoff as well as both the blinds to call. So we're going 4 ways to a flop, which comes down Queen 10 for rainbow. Checks to me, 4 ways, definitely not going to bet this. Even heads up, I wouldn't bet this. So I just check it back and cut off what checks behind. We get to the turn, which is the ace of diamonds. Not great. So when it checks to me, just going to check this back once again. Head to the river, which is a beautiful 8 of diamonds. We river the set. Now small blind leads out for $50, half pot. Big blind now makes a call, and now it's on me, and the question is, do we call or raise? And I think it's quite close. Like, small blind would probably bet quite a few flush draws on the turn. Big blind would raise if he had a flush. And this sizing is quite small for a flush. So it feels kind of like a very small flush, maybe. Or we probably just got him with, like, I don't know, some kind of weird 2 pair. So I decided to go for the very thin raise here. I make it 250. Cut off folds, small blind doesn't think for too long and tosses in the call, and big blind gets out the way. We show, and we were up against the 5-4 of diamonds. That one is not going our way. Now we're getting to the session that I just finished playing. I had sat down in the big blind and then noticed that the cutoff position was open, so I just seat changed over there to start my session. And what do you know? We pick up aces on the very first hand. What a seat change. Under the gun is raised to 15, and I look down and make it $50 to go. Folds back round, and my opponent makes the call. We are heads up to a flop of Queen 5 deuce, 2 hearts, 1 club. Really nice flop. When he checks to me, going to start off with a 1/3 here. About $40, and my opponent makes the call. Heading to the turn, looking for a blank. It is the 3 of clubs. My opponent now checks it over, and the only real hand that kind of got there was ace-4 suited. He's not really going to have anything, so this is pretty much a blank. As well as there being 2 flush draws, and we're in position, we're going to want to bet probably more than the size of the pot here. So I look over at his stack, he covers me. So my stack, we're about 7.5 SPR here. And that's around 150% pot on the turn and river. So I fire out for 270, my opponent thinks it over, and then makes a call. So we're looking for a blank river, and it sort of comes. It's the 5 of clubs. My opponent now checks it over, and I really wish it was more of a blank than this. The 5 of diamonds would have been really nice, because we do have the ace of clubs, which means that he can't have a hand like ace-queen with the ace of clubs, which is going to make his hero calls a little bit more willing to fold on this river. But anyways, we're here. We're about 1.5 SPR, so I'm going to stick all the money in. I jam all in on my very first hand. Opponent thinks it over, and eventually makes the fold, but still picking up a pretty nice pot to start off the day. We are battling the same reg. He's actually a 10-25 player that might even play higher than that, but I didn't know that at the time. Anyways, I raise things up to 15 in the queen jack suited, and my opponent defends in the big blind. So we're going heads up to a flop of jack 6-4, 2 clubs, 1 spade. Checks it to me. This is probably about a half pot bet board, so I fire out for 15. My opponent re-raises me to 45. Nothing to do here but toss in the call, and we go to a turn, which isn't great. It's a 7 of spades, so 5-3 does get there, so does 6-7 if he was getting a little crazy. And then a lot of his hands are going to pick up equity, like his 4-5 suited, stuff like that. Overall, not a great card. My opponent continues barreling now for $80. This size, we ought to call and play some rivers. Hence the river, which is the 10 of clubs. Not a great card. The front door flush does get in. Opponent thinks it over, and then announces all in for $13.60. And it's a little bit tough spot here. I do think about calling for a bit. but we just have so many good hands here. We obviously never have the nut flush because my opponent has the ace of clubs when he's doing this. So in comes what hands do I want to call with? And they're mostly gonna want to hero off with a hand that has a club in between a 6 and a 9. And obviously, if I have a flush like King 9 suited, would be like the dream. King Queen of clubs, I may even let go just because it doesn't have any removal to what he's representing. He's never gonna have Ace King or Ace Queen of clubs, right? He's never gonna have those hands because he'd 3-bet them pre. So his most likely holdings are gonna be the Ace 6 through Ace 9 of clubs, because he didn't 3-bet pre. Right, those wheel aces, ace 4 to ace deuce, are most likely going to 3-bet, as well as anything ace 10 and plus. So his main value here is ace 9, ace 8, ace 7, and ace 6 of clubs. So we want to block at least one of those combos. But unfortunately, queen jack, there's not much I can do. And also, he'd have to find a bluff with like ace of clubs, 5 of diamonds here, right? And how many live players are finding that? So think it over and just let this one go. We don't have to call often here. My opponent does show the ace of clubs, 9 of hearts. Very impressed to see that from a live player. Well done. Well done. You're not going to believe this, but we are battling the exact same player. There's an under the gun raise to 20. Low jack has now ISO'd up to $60, and we look down at pocket eights in the small blind. I randomized a very low percentage 4-bet and landed on 4-bet, so 180 to go, folds back round, and my opponent makes a call. Heads up to a flop of ace, king, 10, 2 clubs, 1 spade. And we're going to be betting this board very heavy, but the SPR is kind of low, so I don't want to go too crazy big. So as much as I'd like to go quarter pot here, I think we do need to size up a little bit. I think 1/3 sounds good. So I fire out for 150. My opponent does continue. Head into the turn. It is the 9 of diamonds. Pretty much a blank, doesn't change anything. And with 2 SPR, I don't want to bet any of my flush draws. And I'm going to be focusing more on my bluffs that just have kind of like no equity, like pocket eights, which only has 2 outs, maybe even 1. And then hands like king, queen, king, jack, 10, queen 10, and jack 10. Hands that block the nuts, as well as blocking him from having 2 pairs and some sets. So pocket eights is going to make it in there sometimes. And my flush draws are going to go into check call mode because getting jammed on just sucks with those hands. So I fire out about 2/3 pot here for $400. Opponent thinks it over and then ships it all in. So not much we can do there. I would be quite interested to see what hands he's ripping in there. I don't know of any hands that really do want to shove there. My range is just so strong on this ace king 10 board. But anyways, moot point. We have pocket eights. We fold. Okay, that absolute crusher has left the table to go play 10-25, and now we've got a nice, bit more passive game. So under the gun is raised up to 20, 3 callers, and we look down at 10-8 of diamonds on the button. Not strong enough to squeeze, so I just toss in the call here in position, and we end up going 5 ways to the flop, which is pretty nice. 9, 8, 7, 2 diamonds, 1 club. We do have the open-ended straight flush draw as well as a middle pair. Original raiser now checks it. Middle position bets $45. We get a call from the hijack, and I think raising's a bit too merged here, especially multi-way, but I don't hate it either. But I'm just going to call in position and play some turns. The original raiser folds, and we're off to the turn, which is a blank deuce of hearts. Middle position now checks it. Hijack thinks, and now puts in a pretty sizable bet of $200. Not really wanting to raise, especially in position versus this sizing, and we've got a great hand to just call in position here. So I toss in the call. Middle position says, whoops, I misread my hand. I didn't mean to bet the flop, and folds. Off the river, looking for some help, and it does come in the king of diamonds. So we do make a decently strong flush, but there's definitely some combos that beat us. Hijack now checks it over, and you know, sometimes we're going to lose to queen jack of diamonds or ace 5 of diamonds or whatever, but we still got to go for some value here. I fire out a pretty polarizing bet of $500, and my opponent snaps it off. Uh-oh. I show, and it's good. We do pick up that pot. Not gonna lie, a little bit worried when he snapped us off like that. Under the gun has raised things up to 20. Low jack has called, and I look down at queen jack of spades. Definitely strong enough to put in the squeeze play here, so I bump things up to $90. Folds back round, the original raiser now makes the call. And now low jack announces all in. Thinking over for a bit, and calling just seems a little bit bad. I don't want to invite under the gun in, and since low jack only flatted, I just don't think he's got too strong of a hand. Sometimes he's going to have ace queen, which sucks, but I think more often than not, we're going to be flipping, and there's a little bit of dead money in there as well. So I reshove all in. Under the gun's thinking it over. Really not hoping for a call here, but it does get through. He manages to find the fold, and we go to a flop of king 5-8, 2 spades. Pretty nice flop. Turn is the jack of diamonds. We pick up a pair, and the river is the deuce of clubs. My opponent rolls over pocket 9, so we are going to pick up that pretty nice pot here. Okay, the under the gun player has raised up to $25. A little bit large for him. He usually goes 20. Low jack has called, and we look down at 7-5 of hearts. Once again, we're on the button, and once again, this hand's a little bit too weak to be squeezing. So I think mostly folding, but sometimes calling is okay, especially this deep. I toss in the call. We go 3 ways to a flop. Queen, queen, 6, rainbow. So we have a backdoor flush, backdoor straight draw. Under the gun now checks. So does a low jack, and with a hand that has so many backdoors, we got to start betting here, and it doesn't need to be big. I fire up for 25. Original razor calls, and now low jack folds. Off to a pretty good turn. It's the 4 of clubs. We pick up the open ender. As well, it's a rainbow board, which is nice. Under the gun now checks, and on paired boards, I don't want to do too much overbetting, if at all. So I'm just going to go for a more normal size of $100. To my surprise now, under the gun fires out a raise of 300. A little bit weird. I think he's saying he most likely has a queen here that trapped. I just don't see pocket 6s trapping, as they want to cooler a queen. But if he does have a queen, it's pretty unlikely that his opponent is going to have one, so it's tough to get 3 streets. So this feels like a queen. Or maybe... no, pocket 4s would bet the flop. So I think it's just a queen here or air. So I'm going to toss in the call, see if we can win a pretty big pot if we make our hand. Off to the river, which is the 7 of spades. So we do improve slightly. And now my opponent's check. Pretty interesting. I think he's either got, a very strong queen, like ace, queen, king, queen, or air. We can check back and win versus air, but what size would put a queen into a miserable spot? I think the answer is all in. We do have a lot of sets here. We have pocket 6s. We do have pocket 4s. I don't think we have pocket 7s, but I don't know. So I'm going to go for it anyways. I fire out all in, a little bit over 2x overbet. Opponent thinks it over. He's not loving it. But he does decide on a fold, so we were going to get that one through. Maybe we didn't even need to, but extra insurance. Okay, under the gun has limped, and I look down at king, queen of spades and the cutoff. Raise things up to $25, and we get a caller from the small blind as well as the original limper. 3 ways to a very nice flop of king, queen, 5, all clubs. Checks to me, and monotone boards, you want to bet very small, so I go about 1/5 pot here, $15. Small blind makes a call, and now the limper raises it up to 60. Pretty small raise, but not wanting to 3-bet this flop, so I just call in position, and small blind gets out the way. We get a very nice turn, the queen of diamonds, and under the gun keeps firing, but only for $100 here. And I look over to stack. If I call, it's like 2 SPR on the river, so we're just not getting it in. As well, I'm very aggressive, and I kind of want to cooler a flush if that's what he's got. Or pocket 5s, but pocket 5s are getting all the money in anyways. So I raise things up to $300. Opponent thinks it over. He says, I don't have a queen. I don't have a club, so I guess I fold. He showed the king of diamonds, so it looks like he was just making a raise with, like, I don't know, king 10 of diamonds or something. But, alright. Not going to get the maximum that hand. Our final hand, button has raised it up to 15, small blind has called, and I defend with the 8-7 offsuit in the big blind. Go 3 ways to a flop of jack 7-6, 2 clubs, 1 spade. So we do have some removal to some flush draws, as well as middle pair and some backdoor straights. Small blind checks it over. I don't think leading's a thing here, so I check it over, and button fires out for 1/3, $15. Small blind gets out the way, and I make the call. I think raising's just a little bit silly here, so we're off to a turn. It's quite nice. It's the 9 of diamonds, so I pick up an open ender, check it over. Now opponent fires out a pot size bet of $75. Very little raising going on when I face this pot size bet, so I'm just going to call and see what happens on the river. River is the deuce of hearts, doesn't improve us at all. I check it over and expecting a pretty hefty bet from my opponent, but he only fires out for $100. Calling is probably just, I think he's just got a jack here too often, so I don't think calling's there. I think folding's pretty reasonable, but we do have removal to 10-8, 8-5, and pocket sevens and 7-6 suited. You get the idea. We are all in. $995 to go. Big ol' overbet once again. Put my opponent in the spot. And he immediately stacks all his chips into one long thing. Pushes it out here. I'm not flinching. It doesn't feel good, but I'm not gonna give away any tells. And he thinks it over. He's got the chips in his hand like he wants to flick one in. Lifts up his cards. And then mucks them. Whew. I thought there was no hope for us that hand, but we get that one through. And we are going to win a pretty sizable pot here. Just getting back in from that session, it went well. You might think I won heaps, but I was actually in that second game, the 2-5, for $4,500 in the first hour. I got scooped in the first two bomb pots that I played. Not fun, but battled all the way back up. In the 5-10 game, I think I lost around $250. I was in for $4,000. Out for a little bit less than that, so that's all right. And then the 2-5 game was in for $4,500, out for $5,120 for a small little win of $620. It's gonna boost the bankroll up a little bit, and I'm really happy to not have lost, $3,000 today. But that is gonna wrap it up. That was a very fun session. So many really interesting spots. So many spots where I can just ship 2-3x overbet on the river. And it worked out almost every time. So really happy with how I played today, considering how tired / hungover I am. Still just dialed in and played well. But that is it from me, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.